Adventures of Mr. Sneaky Duck and Edgar Allan Crow. Sneaky and Edgar go to Kyoto and Osaka. Here they're in Osaka. Today's agenda, we're going to read aloud, think aloud. We're going to talk about what we learned last time. We're going to learn some new information, which includes logical fallacies, a few final test skills, and that's going to be in the next page, your final tests and everything. And then after that, they're going to go to another location. Open source photos and music, what does that mean? Making copies of shared folders or shared files. You can make a copy for yourself on Google Docs, Google Forms, any kind of Google anything, if somebody shares it with you. We're going to find out what .com, .edu, .gov, .net, and all those, what those mean, and what who is. Anyway, let's start. From Kyoto to Osaka in the Shinkansen bullet train. By the time Edgar Allan Crow got to the drummer, he was only about 5 minutes behind Mr. Sneaky Duck. Mr. Duck's train had to go around some farms and buildings, but Edgar flew straight. Did you think about that? When Edgar arrived, Mr. Sneaky Duck pretended like he fell asleep on Kuidaori's Tado's drum. Edgar shook Mr. Duck like crazy, but he wouldn't wake up. Then suddenly, a big Edgar jumped up and almost flew away. He was already scared of the drummer. Mr. Duck broke into laughter. Then Edgar Allan said his father told him a story about this clown who saved the life of a hungry child. He added that after Kuidaori Tado became famous, he opened up this store for clowns. This is a store where clowns go to get their noses, shoes, and clothes. That's why this clown is in front, and all clowns around the world come to visit him, buy things, and pay their respects. Edgar was proud that he had remembered every detail of the story. So you beat me, Edgar crowed. Now, let's go to my great-grandfather's house. Old house, the Osaka castle. Part of your task this time is going to be to try to determine what the claims are here about this clown and if they are correct or not. Is the story about this clown true? So you have to try to figure that out in your next quiz. And let's talk a little bit about what we learned last time. We practiced ethos, pathos, and logos. If you remember ethos, it means if somebody's qualified or if they have experience. Pathos is using emotion to convince your reader or to convince the listener. And logos is using logic. We talked about the rhetorical triangle and the graphic organizer soapstone. And everything on soapstone stood for something. Go back to your notes and look at that. Bias is when an author or a speaker leans one way or another. In other words, they're completely Democratic and they don't talk about the Republican side, or they're completely Republican and don't talk about the Republican side. Slant is using words that have either very positive or very negative connotations in order to make your point more believable. Logical fallacies, we didn't go over them. We just said that there are logical fallacies or mistakes in logic. And that's what we are going to talk about today. Also, we're going to go over a little bit more about slant and bias when we look at an article. So logical fallacies, we need to start by looking at a bunch of notes. So I want you to click here and your notes will open up. You can see it says eBook page 12, notes, logical fallacies. There are more than just logical fallacies on here. So in other words, logical fallacies are a mistake you make in the reasons for the things you say are happening. In other words, if I say the reason I won the game was because I wore these socks. Every time I wear these socks, I win a game. That reasoning has faulty logic. And that is a logical fallacy. Or I say, I went to the party because my friends went to the party. That the reason for what you did is a logical fallacy. So if you go through these, there are a lot of logical fallacies. I'm going to try to explain them quickly, and I gave you some video here to help you understand what they are in real life, because sometimes I don't understand when they're written down. So slippery slope is when somebody said, I'm not going to read this exactly, it's when somebody says, because of this, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, and eventually this happened. So after a while they say, because of A, Z happened, and that's kind of crazy. And there are some examples here, and that was with the commercial, and you could look at that by clicking on that and going to the link. It says open the link. Open link. And so you can watch a video. And the video
when
here...
When your cable company keeps you on hold, you get angry. When you get angry, you go blow off steam. When you go blow off steam, accidents happen. When accidents happen, you get an eye patch. When you get an eye patch, people think you're tough. When people think you're tough, people want to see how tough. And when people want to see how tough, you wake up in a roadside ditch.
Okay, so he woke up in a roadside ditch. Why? Because he didn't have the right type of cable. So A did not cause Z, and that's called slippery slope. Let's go back. There's one that's called hasty generalization, and that's just making a conclusion based on very little information. So even though it's the first day of school, I can tell it's going to be a boring course. That is a hasty generalization. I gave you a video example here. You can look at this. I right-clicked and I'm going to open link. I think you may just be able to click on it. Here we have a Batman, an old Batman episode. She's rubbing poison on her fingertips.
Holy Heidelberg, what'd you do that for?
She touches them with her fingers and gives them poison. But what Batman and Robin say are hasty generalizations. Just because this one woman is this way doesn't mean every woman is that way.
I'm afraid we've been drugged, Robin.
I guess you could never trust a woman.
You can never trust a woman. This is just one person. That doesn't represent all women. That's a hasty generalization. Let's go back. Post hoc ergo propter hoc. This one's easier to remember if you remember that what it means in Greek. It means after this, therefore resulting from this. So whatever this is caused this. So if A occurred after B, B must have caused A. I drank a bottle of water, now I'm sick, so the water must have made me sick. I wore these socks and I won a game. So therefore, these socks, I need to keep wearing them because they are what's making me win the game, not my skill. So look at this. You'll be able to see an example. We go into circular reasoning. This is what you guys are very, very guilty of. Why do you like the music? Oh, I like the music because it's cool. Well, cool and like are so similar. You can't like something for the very same reason that you like it. I like it because it's good. Ice cream is good because it tastes good. You see, that's circular reasoning. You got to come up with different reasons. Ice cream is good because it's sweet to the taste. Ice cream is good because it's creamy in my mouth and I like the taste of milk and sugar. So you could say a lot of different things like that, but you can't just say it's good because it's good. And there are some video examples here too. The either or fallacy is very interesting. What it is saying that it's either one way or the other. Now this is very, very common in the news, and in the news they will want you to believe that either you have to be a Democrat or you have to be a Republican. You have to believe this way or you have to believe that way. Either we go to war or we don't. When really with any type of choice, there are thousands of options, not just one or two. That's called an either or false dichotomy. Dichotomy. You could look that up if you wanted to. Highlight it, right click, explore Google for that, or define it. It says a division or contrast between two things. So it's a false contrast between two things. Let's keep going here. Ad hominem is very easy. It's when you attack the person. And also very young children do this all the time. You say, my dad's stronger than your dad, or my dad's smarter than your dad, and then one guy says, I don't care, you're stupid. Well, wow, that's not very nice. And when you attack somebody, you're really attacking them. You're not attacking their argument. So it's called ad hominem. If you look at homin, comes from the word meaning man, or attack the man and not his argument, or attack the woman and not her argument. Keep going. And the next one is red herring. This is a very difficult one to understand, but really it's when somebody is talking about something, you basically change the subject. Now let's watch. I think you'll be able to click directly on this, but because I own it, it may think that I want to change the text. So I right click and open the link.
Am I able to respond to, are we able to stay on the...
So he's going to talk about the economy.
Until 2 weeks ago, it was 2 Mondays ago, John McCain said at 9 o'clock in the morning that the fundamentals of the economy were strong. 2 weeks before that, he said, George, we've made great economic progress under George Bush's policies. 9 o'clock, the economy was strong. 11 o'clock that same day, 2 Mondays ago, John McCain said that we have an economic crisis. That doesn't make John McCain a bad guy, but it does point out he's out of touch. Those folks on the sidelines knew that 2 months ago.
Governor Palin?
So what is Governor Palin going to say about the economy? She's going to try to change the subject to now we're going to talk about how strong the American people are, not how much money they're making.
You may respond.
John McCain, in referring to the fundamental of our economy being strong, he was talking to and he was talking about the American workforce, and the American workforce is the greatest in this world with the ingenuity and the work ethic that is just entrenched in our workforce.
You know, she did two things. She changed the subject, which was the red herring, and she's also trying to appeal to the masses there, which is called ad populum. I don't know if that's not the next one, but we'll go over that again later. Straw man is oversimplifying somebody's argument. So people who don't support the state minimum wage hate poor people. Wait a minute, I didn't say I hated poor people. This video example is pretty funny. It says, in this example, the mention of a politician wanting Saddam Hussein back in power is the straw man.
Besides the economy, reproductive rights, taxation, the environment, and education, where do you and Sue Kelly differ?
Well, she voted for this war, which I would not have voted for. She voted for...
So you'd rather see Saddam?
He said he voted for a war, or he did not vote for a war, and his answer was, well, then you want Saddam back in power. Wait a second, Saddam is part of Iraq, but that's not what I said. I said I didn't support the war, not that I do support Saddam Hussein. So that's a good example of a straw man. What about in an article or words on a paper? How can I find a logical fallacy? Well, this is one that I have found as a good example. I got it from the FresnoBee.com. I'm going to make it bigger so it's easier for everybody to see. I think. There we go. I think it got ridiculously big now. Yep. All right. So in the article, it said, restorative justice Teachers say McLean High classrooms are spiraling out of control. And this is by Mackenzie Mays. And you can see her email address there, which gives it credibility to know that she's a real, journalist. But when it says that, and this is a news article in the education section, when it says spiraling out of control, first of all, remember about slant? Well, that's very much slanted. When I look at spiraling out of control, as I put here in the notes, it gives me the idea that, it's kind of like crazy. Papers are being thrown around, teachers getting punched in the stomach, kids are kissing in the back of the class, ridiculous stuff. You got to go through a metal detector. I know for a fact that that's not how McLean High School is, and I could look on YouTube or I could look on pictures and stuff on the internet, which could tell me that that's not true. Okay? But when the reader sees this, they start immediately getting an idea that we're going to start talking about a crazy classroom. Okay? It says teachers at the school were circulating a petition that says those same strategies have led to an unsafe campus plagued with fights and disruptions. Well, number one, this is a hasty generalization. Just because there's a new restorative justice system and there are behavior problems, it doesn't mean that the restorative justice problem caused the behavior problems, because the kids know very little about the restorative justice problem unless they get in trouble, right? So anyway, if you keep going, it also says plagued. Well, plague, wow. If you look that up, what's a plague? I'm going to look that up. Define plague. It says a contagious bacterial disease characterized by a fever and delirium. Wow. Do you think that that's a slanted word in trying to give people negative connotations, negative feelings about what they're going to talk about? Here it says there are constant disruptions. Really? That seems to be an exaggeration. A constant disruption would be real crazy. And then it says there are numerous on-campus fights, numerous again. You could say how many there are. There were like 5. That's a lot. Okay, where teachers are verbally assaulted. And then it says they. Who's they? Teachers, I guess. Point to an incident earlier this year in which the school resource officer was severely injured while breaking up a fight among students. Well, hold on a second. This is one officer. They're trying to prove numerous fights. This does not prove it. It's also an overgeneralization. Just because one officer gets kicked in the head doesn't mean that there are a lot of fights. It means one officer got kicked in the head. And that's unfortunate, and I wish it didn't happen, but it did. It says, oh, here's a slippery slope, people. Our students are losing valuable classroom instructional time. This is A, okay, losing time, which is depriving them of their right to an education. B, which is decreasing their chances of success. C, and it's affecting the morale of staff members. D. So D, the morale, how the staff feels, has something to do with kids losing their instructional time. Okay, that's a slippery slope. So you can see that adults, even people in the news, can make mistakes, can have very slanted opinions. They could also be very biased. This article seems like it's pretty biased. I did find something funny though. If you look at a picture that I found, the website, it's funny because this is advertising right here, teaching credential. You want to earn your teaching credential. But this page is nothing but negative about schools and teachers hating it. So would you really want your advertisement to go on this page? This is a mistake. It goes on the keyword of school or teaching or something, but it didn't know whether it was negative or positive. This little computer program that decides what ad goes on here does not read slant. It doesn't read logical fallacies either. So you've seen that. You can have this for yourself. Now, I haven't been showing you this because I've wanted you to write your notes, but watch this. If you go to File and then Make a Copy, you can have this of your very own and even write on it. It says copy of logical fallacy. You can even write it, write something else here. Fallacy, mine. And you can say, okay. You don't have to share it with anybody. Say, okay. Now you can write on your own form while I'm talking if you wanted to type. I wanted you to write because I wanted you to try to learn through reading and writing and also have it available if you're not on the computer. So, but if you do need, because there's a lot of reference, I want you to be able to copy it for yourself. And then you can find it on your own Google Drive. I gave you some other examples here. Now, in one of the surveys in the beginning, I asked you, do you know the difference between .com, .org, and all this stuff? Well, this gives you a little idea, and I got it from domainregister.com. So, .com is used for business. .net is network-related organizations. .org is for nonprofit groups. But anybody could have a nonprofit group. So just about any of these can be owned by anyone. And then if you look at the other .biz, then it's for business, but anyone can register it. Asia is a new one, and anybody can register it. EU is for people in Europe. You can look through these. .co.uk is for companies in the United Kingdom. And if it's just .co, it's Colombia. So every country also has their extension. So you can get a lot of information just from this. It's called a URL up here, or the website's address. So you could know from the .com that this site anybody can have. So go through those and look at those if you want. It's interesting, but it's nothing that you have to memorize. You can use that for reference. What I want you to notice, though, here in highlighted, .edu, these are reserved, and it's very difficult, or not easy anyway, to get a .edu. You have to be a school, and there are some other requirements. So these websites tend to be a little bit more valid, a little bit more credible. Also these .gov, although governments can lean one way or another, so be careful of that. So can schools, but this is why we always cross-check our information with other websites that are credible, because we want to find out what the real truth is. Now, this is for your project that you're pretty much going to have in the next lesson. It's open source, which means you can use it without violating any property rights, any royalties. These are basically free pictures and free music. Sometimes, though, you have to credit where it comes from. So I have the free music archive right here, and there's another one, which is this Pixabay. I thought that I had it on here, but I'll put it on here for you right now. Pretty easy. Pixabay. So if you look at these, and I did look this up on the internet, it's very tricky because when you look something up on the internet, this one is an ad. Somebody's getting paid for this. This one also, somebody's getting paid. If you are paying for an ad, then probably your service costs money. You know what I mean? Or else you're going to be losing money to pay for ads. I did click on some of those anyway, and I looked at it, and when I click on this, it says free and all this, but it's very deceptive. Okay, I want this picture. Oh, okay, let's download it. Wait a second, I need a password, sign up for free. I don't want all that. So I didn't want to use that. And I found this one eventually, which is pretty legitimate, and if you want free, you can select the ones that are open source. Same with this, but some people do want to receive credit. So you have to say where some of this music came from, and you just search for it here. And you can add or download music to a lot of different things in Google Docs or within Google Forms. And we're going to learn a little bit more about Google Forms, which is like PowerPoint in Windows. All right, that's enough for today. Hope you have a good day. Good luck on your quiz. And I'll see you on page 13 where everything is finishing for this unit. And we're going to be moving on to the next location for these guys. Have a great day. Alt-Tab. Stop.